Hey, Louie, thanks for having us on. When I think about the adaptation problem that we're trying to solve with Orbital Sentry, the challenge that really comes to mind is a knowledge gap, and it's a specific knowledge gap around time and understanding data sets and time series data sets in real time. There's gaps. We have lots of data points from many of the phenomenal tools that have been developed in the remote sensing space, from low Earth orbit satellites, from in ground sensors, and things of that nature. But a sort of comprehensive, large geographic, continuous view of the world is something that does not commercially exist. And that's what we want to bring to the table by developing a geosynchronous satellite that will put up in orbit. A geosynchronous satellite rotates at the same speed as the planet orbits, which has the effect of sort of having it hold still over a very large region. This, therefore, lets us create a live stream of data. And the first challenge that we want to take on with this is tracking and monitoring wildfire in real time so that we can provide data back to the folks that need it, like first responders, immediately and in 15-second increments so that they can see how a fire is moving in real time and not by getting just radioed in updates and a satellite update every day and things of that nature, but really understand like what is it doing right this moment. So that's the problem we're trying to solve right in front of us in the short term. And we also anticipate in the medium and long term addressing other perils and other challenges with that same technology. Gosh, in terms of wildfire right now, climate change is definitely driving more impactful wildfires. We are seeing now in the summer of 2026 warm and dry conditions leading to increased wildfire in many places. Some places prone to wildfire, like Canada, and other places significantly less prone. I'm currently in the UK, and there are wildfires in Wales and Scotland, which is a bit wild. So we only anticipate this getting worse with unchecked climate change. And it needs to be something that we're going to have to adapt to and learn how to prepare for and address as these conditions continue to stay warm and dry and or get warmer and drier. So wildfire is going to have to be something that communities who are not typically used to wildfire learn to live with and adapt to. I will not claim that we will solve all the world's problems with our satellite solution, but we hope to be a part of the broader solution set and to provide some of the data and knowledge that folks need to prepare for and adapt to these challenging situations that we're going to be finding ourselves in the years ahead. I love a good founder origin story. So I have a co-founder named Mark, and then of course myself involved in this project. And I think we are a fantastic team to bring this together. Mark's background is in building satellites for the intelligence community and then for Planet Labs. So he's actually built and launched satellites to solve real problems, which is fantastic. And then my background is kind of where space meets insurance. I spent a number of years at NASA. I spent a number of years at RMS in the CAP modeling space. I spent some time at Cape Analytics doing computer vision on aerial data and bringing that to market. And I think those two backgrounds and experiences coming together help us understand how we can actually bring an impactful commercial solution to the space. So Mark brings that technical expertise and background, and I bring the like, I've actually been in that enterprise business space, know what the problems are, and know how we can bring a solution to bear that will actually be useful and impactful. And so, I think we're the right team at the right time to do that as a result. And it's been really fun so far doing that. Yeah, so I hope we solve that time data gap problem, and that has an impact on both vulnerability and exposure to risk. In real time, we hope that we identify fires faster and are able to monitor them in real time, and therefore allow first responders and people impacted to um, react better and hopefully lead to saving, lives and property and, ecosystems and things of that nature. So that's a very big goal of just like fire management. And then the other piece of that is once you have a data set that allows you to sort of play back how an event unfolded in real time, then you start to be able to do some really interesting things in the cat modeling space. So you can look back and see how the fire progressed and then compare it to your models and say, like, hey, was my model accurate? Did it go in the right direction? If we considered this wind speed and this topology and things like that, what happened? And do I need to update my model? And then with better models, hopefully we can improve outcomes moving forward. I'm also personally hopeful that having the data be able to be played back in real time will help us understand even more which mitigations really matter for communities. We have a great understanding of that right now, but if we can take it multiple steps further and really provide people with clear, like, this worked, this didn't, that it will encourage communities and individuals to take the right steps to keep themselves and their property safe. So that's another area that has big hopes and dreams around. Yeah, so our customers are actually insurers and utilities to begin with at the moment. We also have a dual use capability. So we do have a defense application separate from the wildfire application, which would, of course, make our customers defense organizations. In this particular case, in terms of getting them to see the need for what we're doing, there's no need to do that. I have not spoken to anyone yet who's like, I don't need a continuous data set. I think more likely there's occasional pushback around like whether this should be commercially provided or public organizations should provide this data, which is a fair and valid question. I will always be here to say that organizations like NASA and NOAA and ESA are incredibly important. The work they do is foundational to everything that we do and really needed for validation and verification. But also, they are solving for like broad public science and really cool science and progressing the science. And we are solving for trying to solve these very commercial, specifically commercial challenges. There's another piece to that too, where we're explicitly not charging first responders for some of the critical data around this. And this is in large part, and our customers seem to understand this, is if we give them the data, first responders the data, our customers, utilities, and insurers benefit because loss is reduced. If first responders have better data, can respond better, then property and lives are saved. Utilities face less pushback, public pushback if fires are put out faster. So there's been no sort of challenges explaining that to them. It's more about from a societal perspective, who should pay. But by and large, folks seem to understand and seem pretty on board. It's definitely explaining the live stream from space capability over a very large area. And depending on my audience, some folks who are, say, more familiar with satellite data might be like, well, hey, the data I'm familiar with comes in these like narrow strips and it's just a flyby and I can only get an image and it's maybe at best every 30 minutes that it gets updated. So what's differentiating there? And then we have to explain about like geosynchronous data and how a geosynchronous satellite is further out from the planet and rotates at the same speed as the planet and therefore kind of holds still over a region and that covers a huge area, like the entire western seaboard of the US. And then is always on, always providing data, always like having a continuous stare. So that's one way we explain it. If they're even less interested in orbital mechanics and are not familiar with satellite data, another way I like to explain it is it's sort of like a video doorbell from space. It's like your video doorbell is always on an alert for something coming by, somebody ringing the doorbell, somebody dropping a package off. This would be the same thing. And it would alert up like, oh, hey, we spotted a hotspot. It might be a fire. 30 seconds later, okay, we've confirmed it's a fire. 5 minutes later, okay, we see how the fire is progressing. And here's, up to date data on that every 15 seconds. So, and that one seems to go over pretty well. People seem to understand that conceptually. Boy, is it hard to raise money when you are not an AI company in 2026. I would say we went into this being like, well, this is sort of like a obviously good idea, and we don't expect people to throw money at us. But once we explain it a few times, like people will come around. Um, and by and large, people were like, this is cool. This would be needed. But we ran into a lot of headwinds with being a deep tech, hard tech company, um, looking for funders who were sort of willing to take a bet on hard tech and deep tech and space tech. In today's sort of like AI environment when there's so many like AI tools, out there competing for funds. Um, but we were really lucky, I think, because the idea is very sound, that we have got some really awesome funders behind us who get it and folks who are on board, who understand. And so I think the biggest challenge is like it took longer than we expected, and we had to really look for the right kinds of funders who really got that, really understood the space, understand the challenges, but also the possibility. And once we like unlocked the right folks to talk to, it went really well. But there was a moment, probably in the early spring, where Mark and I were like, "Gosh, are we ever going to be able to convince any? It's so obvious this is such a good idea. We really need this. You can see it all around us with climate change. Like it's so important. We have a clear like vehicle for return on the investment." And then we found the right folks, and the conversation shifted. But that was definitely maybe a month or so, where we were like, "Can we do it?" And I'm glad we stuck it out because I'm really excited about where we are now. For me, coming from the commercial enterprise sales space, a thing I learned not early on, actually took a while, was how I talk to our prospective customers and how I talk to prospective funders are very different. The customers want like the brass tacks and how is this really going to work and how can I really use this, and how am I going to take all this data and do anything with it? And the VCs really want vision. Um, and that's cool. I get it why they want vision, but sort of adjusting for how we speak to the folks that really want to see the vision and what we think is possible and how big we think it could be and how kind of game changing it could be is a very different conversation than talking to an enterprise customer about like, hey, here's the specific problem I solve for you tomorrow. And so learning to use different talk tracks, not even just between customers, which is sort of like a known, like you don't talk to insurers the same way you talk to utilities, but between the people who provide the funding and the people who are your customers. And getting really good at that was a big learning, I think, for both of us, that we would definitely apply. And I would, promote to other founders in this space is, one talk track, big, visionary, how are you going to change the world? The other one is, how are you going to solve my problem? And it seems sort of obvious, but it took us a little bit to like fully understand that and then turn that into sort of applying for funds and things like that. My personal perspective from what I've seen and experienced is that there's a lot of capital flowing into AI and software type solutions. And I think there's some value and interest there, but I definitely think it's sort of over egged a little bit. And there needs to be more capital put into tangible solutions, hard tech, deep tech, material things that solve real problems in the space, batteries and, uh, new types of air conditioners and stuff like that, new chemical processes and biological solutions and things of that nature. I think is where it's really critical to be thinking about putting funding. And we experience that a lot. And I understand, those don't have quick returns on investment, but that's what's going to move the needle in the years ahead is those types of solutions and not sort of 10,000 AI solutions, which will probably eventually all be aggregated up into a few core solutions anyways. The other piece on that is like set which markets are you selling into and working with? We've talked to investors who are like, oh, insurance, utilities, those are hard. And I'm like, they're hard, but they are at the front lines of this problem. They are the ones dealing with the impact and fallout of climate change right now. And therefore, they are going to be the ones who heavily influence the direction and impact. And so they're the ones we have to sell into to really make a difference here. And there are actually some AI solutions and things like that that can sell into this space, but I see folks sort of shying away, away from because it's hard. And I don't think they should. I think they should be working with these folks because they're at the front lines, and that's how we're really going to drive change. Sure, I'll take this soapbox opportunity for a moment. I would say something I'd want to talk about is the fact that climate adaptation is a team sport, and we all need to approach it like a team sport. Even specifically with what we're trying to do at Orbital Sentry, we are a commercial entity, but we recognize, we stand on the backs of years of public programs that have gone before. We need those public programs to continue to validate what we're doing and to progress the science. We need industry to get on board and not just wait for government to solve all these problems, but to be a part of the conversation. We, of course, need communities to support adaptation measures and to work with us. Specifically, orbital sentry data, we want academics to validate our data and to use it to do cool science. And we want commercial entities to pay for our data to help solve their commercial problems for it. And we hope first responders use it to put out fires faster. And this makes a bigger, more complicated network that we have to work within and operate within. But I think we have to. And I think that's just the way of it. I was at a climate conference a few months ago where there were utilities and insurers on the stage together talking about wildfire. And folks were commenting like, oh, you don't typically see like these two industries together talking about stuff. But they should be. Like, they both face this problem. They're both at the front lines. There's absolutely tons of knowledge and interesting things they can share. Obviously, they are starting to, and that's great. And we really hope to be a part of progressing those conversations, being a part of those sort of continued forums where we do start to collaborate and work across industries, work across academia, work across government, et cetera, to really solve this hard problem facing everyone.